Mr. Cohen here with another online lesson, and this time we're going to talk about absolute values. Please make sure you have the worksheet and a pencil ready in front of you. Also, at any time you can pause and rewind and watch the video again. Today we're talking about absolute value, and before we dive into it we need to get a couple definitions down. The first one is the definition of absolute value. Absolute value is the distance between a number and zero on the number line. That's its absolute value. Pause the video, copy down that definition. Okay, the distance between a number and zero on the number line. Here's zero on my number line. The absolute value of 1 is 1. Why? Because it's one space away from zero. But what about the absolute value of a negative 1? How many spaces away from zero is it? It's one space. So the absolute value of negative 1 is 1. We also need to know opposites. Opposites are numbers that are the same distance from zero in opposite directions. And zero is its own opposite. Pause the video, copy down those definitions. Okay, so what does it mean? Opposite numbers that are the same distance from zero in opposite directions. So here's 0, and here is 3. Notice 3 is 1, 2, 3 spaces away from 0. What is 3's opposite? Well, start at 0 and go 3 the opposite direction. 1, 2, 3. The opposite is negative 3. What is the opposite of negative 2? Well, notice 2 is negative 1, negative 2 spaces away. So the opposite would be the opposite direction, positive 1, positive 2. The opposite of negative 2 is 2. And 0 is its own opposite because, well, 0 is just right in the middle. Okay, let's look at our number line here. What is the opposite of 5? Well, if 5 is 5 spaces away from 0 in the positive direction, to find the opposite of 5, we would go 5 spaces in the negative direction, which leads us to negative 5. So the opposite of 5 is negative 5. Okay, this next one's a little bit tricky. I want you to pause the video and think about the answer to this question here. Okay, it says, what is the opposite of negative 4? Let me pull up my little pen here so I can write. Again, so we start at 0. What is the opposite of negative 4? So here's negative 4. And the opposite of negative 4 is positive 4. But it's not asking what the opposite is. It's asking what the opposite of the opposite is. The opposite of the opposite is just that. It's negative 4. Negative 4. What is the opposite of negative 4? Well, the opposite is 4. And the opposite of that is negative 4. Okay. Oops. Give me 1 second here. Let me clean this up. No. Okay. Next, the absolute value symbol. What you'll notice is that there's an integer with 2 bars on each side. That is the absolute value symbol. So when you see that, you know that what the question's asking for is the absolute value. Notice right here my head is in between the 2 lines. This would be asking what the absolute value of my head is. But here on your screen, notice that 5 is in between the 2 lines. That's asking what is the absolute value of 5, which is how many spaces away from 0 is 5? The answer, 5. So on your worksheet it asks draw the absolute value symbol. It would be just that. It would be an integer with 2 lines on each side of it. It says draw a number line and evaluate the absolute value of negative 4. So here's your number line. Copy this down on your notes. And let's evaluate what the absolute value of negative 4 is. Okay, let me pull up my drawing. And here. So here's negative 4, right? I'm going to mark it on my number line. Evaluate what the absolute value of negative 4 is. Remember, absolute value is how far away from 0 are you. Negative 4 is 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative 4 is 4 spaces away from 0. So what is the absolute value of negative 4? It's how far away from 0 is it? The answer is 4. Now, this next one's a little bit tricky. Give me 1 second here. Okay. Evaluate the absolute value of negative 9 minus the absolute value of 3. Now remember, going back to our definition of absolute value, it's just how far away from 0 is it? So, the absolute value of negative 9. How far away from 0 is negative 9? The answer is 9. The absolute value of negative 9 is 9. Minus, what's the absolute value of 3? Well, how far away from 0 is 3? The answer, 3. 9 minus 3 is simply 6. So the absolute value of negative 9 minus the absolute value of 3 is 6. Okay. This will conclude our lesson on absolute values. Again, remember, bring this completed worksheet to class with you. This is going to be your ticket to meet with the group. So without this sheet done, you can't come to group. Please remember to bring it, and we'll catch you next time.